Hi, this is Sondra Oster Baras, and I want to talk to you today about what is all over the news. President Trump has made it very clear that he, in his own words, will not allow Israel to extend sovereignty in Judea and Samaria. Today is a critical meeting between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Trump. And there's a great deal of concern. In fact, there are many people who have just said, it's over, it's done, our dream has gone to dust. And the first thing I want to tell you is not to give up hope. We are not finished. It is not over. And even if, as a result of this critical meeting, Netanyahu feels pressured and obligated to freeze any attempts to extend sovereignty in Judea and Samaria, the story is still not over. Now, let me just give you a bit of perspective. I've been here for more than 40 years, and I can tell you that for most of those years, the very idea of extending sovereignty in Judea and Samaria was not even dreamed about, let alone talked about. It just seems such a faraway pipe dream. Not only that, everybody got stuck over what do you do with the Arabs, the 2 million or so Arabs that are living here in Judea and Samaria. We don't want them as citizens. What are we going to do? Since then, of course, all sorts of creative ideas have been floated. But it was only a few years ago that the very idea of extending sovereignty became something that people talked about. Now we have been here in Judea and Samaria since 1967, but in greater numbers for about 50 years. Okay? So if only recently, in the last 5-10 years, we've started even talking or envisioning sovereignty, so we have to remember that if it doesn't happen right away, that doesn't mean it won't happen. Okay, now there's another thing that I want to focus on, or I want to point out, okay? We know, you and I, we all know, the land belongs to Israel. Why? Because God said so. It's written in the Bible. God promised this land going all the way back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and then continuing on through the Bible and then through history. This land belongs to the people of Israel. What then is the significance of extending legal Israeli sovereignty over that land? Well, it helps in a lot of ways. It helps legally, it helps technically. One of the most important things, though, that we can accomplish by extending sovereignty is that we put the lid, finally, on any idea of a Palestinian state. And if you ask me right now, that's the most important thing. So yes, we need to continue to work towards sovereignty, but if we cannot put the lid on a Palestinian state by extending sovereignty right now, we can do other things to put the lid on a Palestinian state. We can expand our communities. We can develop more communities. And today we have an Israeli government who, for the first time in a very long time, is actually doing those things. We have 22 communities that have been legalized, or even brand new communities just in the past few months. And the process is continuing. We have new initiatives, new neighborhoods that are being created next to, around, just beyond existing communities. We must get to 1 million Jewish residents of Judea and Samaria. There is nothing like our numbers and sheerly just being spread out across the area to really put a lid on a Palestinian state. There's also things that can be done legally in order to create the same sort of reality of sovereignty without extending sovereignty. And a lot of those ideas have been talked about, certain local Israeli laws that can advance this process. But at the end of the day, we have reached a very critical point here in Israel. For the first time ever, an overwhelming majority of Israelis are against the creation of a Palestinian state. Most of those would accept Israeli sovereignty in Judea and Samaria, particularly if it would not bury us deeper in isolation, in boycotts. Certainly, most people in Israel are very concerned about a cooling down of an American relationship if we were to extend sovereignty against the will of President Trump, for example. President Trump, who we view as a very important ally, probably the best president of the United States that Israel has ever been working with. But we know that President Trump made important announcements yesterday, today, but things change all the time, and President Trump is somebody who changes with the changes. If he sees things are not working, he will change. And one of the things that can make a huge difference is you. Those of you who are American citizens, you can reach out to the White House and express yourselves very clearly for the good of Israel and for the good of America. Israel must be not only allowed to, but encouraged to extend sovereignty over Judea and Samaria. This will do so much to fight terrorism and to kill the whole idea of a Palestinian state, which is good for Israel, it is good for America, it is good for the entire free world. So this is what I'm asking you to do. Reach out to the White House, write a letter, send an email, call, whatever you do, flood the White House with messages that say, President Trump, encourage Israel to extend sovereignty over Judea and Samaria. The second thing, pray. Things happen, things change from one minute to the next. If we look back over these 2 years of war, one day we think it's hopeless, the next day, just a year ago, that amazing operation of the Mossad that had all these pagers blowing up all over the place and decimated Hezbollah. The day before that, nobody would have believed this was possible. And this is something that is in God's hands. Pray to God that he will wrought his miracles, that he will bless the people who are looking for interesting initiatives that can make a difference. But finally, never give up hope. We are still aiming for sovereignty. If it doesn't happen today, if it doesn't happen next week, there is no question in my mind it will happen. It will happen sooner than later. And if we all put ourselves together and work, each of us, in any way we can, it will happen. I truly believe that. Have a wonderful day. See you again soon.